Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm excited to introduce our presentation on inclusive practice, focusing on identity and language, and cultural competence. In this session, we'll explore how culture shapes who we are, how language influences our understanding, and how developing cultural competence is essential for creating truly inclusive environments. Over the next few slides, we'll dive into these interconnected topics and discuss practical ways to apply this knowledge in our work. Let's get started. Let's take a closer look at why language matters so much for professionals like clinicians, HR leaders, and DEI practitioners. The words we choose can directly impact the strength of our therapeutic alliances, foster psychological safety, and build trust within organizations. It's important to remember that developing competence in this area isn't just a nice-to-have, it's an ethical responsibility. Language isn't just about communication. It encodes social hierarchies, reflects cultural values, and reveals historical power dynamics. The specific words we use, and those we consciously avoid, send clear signals about inclusion or exclusion to the communities we serve. But cultural competence goes far beyond simply addressing prejudice or bias. It involves understanding that language is a living, breathing carrier of power, belonging, and identity. It's a nuanced tool that shapes how people see themselves and how they are perceived by others. So when we think about language in this context, we're recognizing it as a powerful force, one that can either reinforce inequalities or help dismantle them. Our goal is to use language thoughtfully, knowing that it can influence trust, safety, and ultimately, the success of our work with diverse communities. Let's talk about best practices when working with individuals from diverse backgrounds. It's really important to always ask people about their preferred language and to honor that choice consistently, whether we're in clinical settings or within the organization. When someone's preferred language is ignored or corrected, it can lead to perceived language discrimination. This perception is significant because it's linked to increased psychological distress, a lower likelihood of seeking help, and a diminished sense of belonging. So, respecting language preferences isn't just polite, it's crucial for mental health and engagement. Now, shifting to the mental health impact, within disability communities, the term disabled person is often embraced as an affirmation of identity and pride. It rejects the idea that disability is something separate from or lesser than the person. It's about reclaiming power and identity. Contrast that with person with a disability, which focuses on the individual's humanity before their diagnosis. This person-first language is widely used in clinical and legal contexts because it helps reduce stigma and emphasizes that the person is more than their condition. This brings us to an interesting tension within disability culture, the debate between person-first and identity-first language. Both approaches shape how lived experiences are understood and can influence mental health outcomes. Recognizing this helps us appreciate how language reflects and impacts people's identities and well-being. Overall, understanding these nuances helps us communicate more effectively and compassionately, fostering a more inclusive and supportive environment for everyone. Instead of viewing differences as a personal deficit, the social model shifts the focus to systemic structures that create barriers. This means that the responsibility for making changes lies with institutions and organizations, not just individuals. When we talk about the social model of inclusion, it's important to recognize that people hold multiple, overlapping social identities, like race, gender, ability, and more, that interact in complex ways. As practitioners, we need to avoid single-axis thinking, which simplifies these identities, and instead pay attention to the layered realities of the people we serve. Recognizing intersectionality is key here. Our updated recommendations emphasize using bias-free language across various aspects such as race, ethnicity, gender, disability, age, and socioeconomic status. Grounding our communication in current psychological science helps us be more inclusive and respectful. The APA's 2023 guidelines give us a solid, evidence-based framework for moving beyond outdated, ethnocentric norms. When we combine these guidelines with an intersectional perspective, it really supports a fundamental shift in how we approach inclusion, making it more comprehensive and effective. Ultimately, transitioning from ethnocentric norms to a social model of inclusion encourages us to see diversity as layered and systemic, rather than as something to be fixed within individuals. This approach aligns with the overall goal of creating a truly inclusive environment where barriers are addressed at their root. Language is not just a neutral tool. It actually shapes how we feel a sense of belonging. It acts as the architecture of belonging, creating the foundation for inclusive interactions. Remember, inclusive language isn't a final goal. It's an ongoing practice. Professionals should stay curious, be open to feedback, and commit to lifelong learning because this domain is constantly evolving. When we develop shared norms around inclusive language, we build psychological safety across teams. Communicating intentionally fosters trust, reduces conflict, and strengthens our collective identity. It's all about creating an environment where everyone feels safe and valued. Reflecting someone's identity in the way we speak shows that we see, hear, and value their reality. That's fundamental for effective therapeutic and organizational relationships. Validating lived experiences through our language helps us build genuine connections and understanding. In the end, using inclusive language intentionally is one of the most powerful tools we have. It helps us validate diverse experiences and promotes true organizational cohesion. So, let's keep practicing and refining how we communicate, knowing that language is a key instrument for validation and unity.